Hello church, good to be here again this week. And what an important week it's been. We've reached the 12-month anniversary of being placed into lockdown, and yesterday was an opportunity to stop and reflect. And I don't know about you, but we took a moment just to light a couple of candles and just stand outside and just remember all that had gone on. We've heard so much about the death toll and the numbers it represents, and yesterday was an opportunity to remember that they are people, not just a number, and that every number represents a family who have been impacted by the loss of somebody over the pandemic period. It caused me to reflect ourselves as a church family, the people we have lost due to COVID, or people we've lost due to other ailments and reasons, and just how it's been difficult to be able to grieve and process that loss as a church family. We recognise as well, don't we, that there have been many people impacted over this last year, financially, with jobs. People's well-being has suffered, emotions have run high, and mental health has become a word on the ends of our tongues. We've also, I think, really realised how physically connecting with one another is so important. God knew what he was doing when he said it's not good for humans to be alone. We've had to rethink how we do things as a church and as individuals. I remember being there on the 23rd of March 2020, tuning in to hear Boris place us into lockdown, and moments later being on a call with Anna Cave and David Shaw, understanding what this meant for us. It meant no longer meeting in person at the bridge. Staff were told to stay at home. At first it felt like the church was closed, but we knew better. But we did have to rethink everything. How we do church, how we connect. We all remember that first Sunday service over Facebook Live where the camera got kicked and Ben dad danced on the internet. We remember the phone calls we were encouraged to make, to reach out to those in our church, connecting with one another, seeing how they are doing. The word Zoom took on a different meaning as we all learnt how to do it. And boy, did we Zoom. We zoomed. We remember those Sunday morning worship times as we watched over YouTube, sometimes the worship leader from their front room or even from their bedroom. They were intimate times. Throughout the year, we didn't stop serving food parcels. Our community lunch adapted to giving away food parcels to those in need, both in the church and in the community. And every week since the pandemic began, we've had a small team of faithful volunteers here to meet those in most need. If you know of somebody who would benefit from a food parcel, then please get in touch and we'll seek to organise that. We found ways of celebrating Easter. The walk of witness was a virtual one. We were encouraged to reach out to friends and neighbours. We hung things on trees and put things in windows. Over the last year, we remember multiple Zoom church prayer times for people in the church, for coming back out of the pandemic, and the latest few as we've prayed together. We remember a number of children's videos, the last being Great Big God, weren't they great? And many of us has become proficient on YouTube stars, you might say. And as we look forward, Easter will be different again this year. But please take the opportunity to reach out to people with the love of Christ. Don't let the restrictions restrict you. And don't let Easter be about a chocolate egg only. When we think of these last few months, it has been long and it's been hard. It's been wet and cold and dark. But spring is here. We recognise that we all need time to come back together, and just in a few weeks' time on Easter Sunday, we'll be opening up the bridge on a Sunday morning to a small congregation. But over the next few months, as we open up more and more, the church will be able to come back together. And we recognise that will be an important step. We've had wonderful interaction through our small groups and our home groups, but as a church family, some of us will not have seen one another for over a year. There'll be a lot of reforming, a lot of bonding. I can imagine wonderful times of worship in the bridge with the Holy Spirit moving, celebrating that we can now move forward as one, and that will be an important step. And it's good to look back, as I've done really briefly this today, but it's also important to look forward. One thing I perhaps would like to draw your attention to that God's been impressing upon us, and that's our need as God's people to be active and present in our community, reaching people with the love of Christ. We as God's ambassadors need to have a voice in our community, collectively and individually. There is great power when the church comes together, but we must not let that narrow our activity for God's kingdom in our community. To having to be in the building, in the bridge, or there having to be a church event that I can get involved in. Right before the pandemic, God directed us to increase our activity in the community. You are the church right now. You are God's ambassadors wherever you are now. You are a royal priesthood. It is not when we're in this building only. And we need to think about how we can be an active witness for Christ, whether it's in the bridge, whether it's home, or whether it's at work or in our social areas. And that's been a big emphasis for us at Easter, is that how we can be an active witness for Jesus where we are at. Yes, there'll be corporate times. Yes, there'll be corporate activities together. I've talked about that. But we must not let that be all we do. Through our midweek groups, through our home groups, through our care groups, by yourself, seek out opportunities to reach people, and through that relationship, invite them to know Jesus. And in that relationship, God's been impressing that upon us. Fellowship through relationship. And God continues to emphasize our call on relationships with people. Firstly, our relationships with one another. It's the koinonia we talked about at the beginning of the year. But that fellowship, that relationship is a message in itself. And as people see how we live with one another, they are compelled to know more. But God's also been impressing upon us. It's about seeking out relationships with those in our community. God seems to be steering us away from the one-hit wonder activities to something that seeks to have an ongoing building of relationship and connection with people. And through that connection, we take the bold step of inviting them to know Jesus. And another area in this that God has been talking to us about is the emphasis on how the church can meet needs, and through that meeting needs can point people to Christ. What does Jesus say himself? I was hungry and you fed me. I was in prison and you visited me. There will be a lot of people out there who, once the pandemic is over and they process stuff, will realise they're still suffering a loss. Their financial position may have changed, jobs may have changed, and they may need help finding a new direction for life. Others might realise that their well-being has really suffered, while others again may be hungry, cold, and in need of help. Where we can, we want to meet those needs. We want to be a resource to our community and help navigate people through coming out of the pandemic. And at that point, we want to point them towards Jesus as their door of hope. What does the Bible say? I am the door, and whoever walks through me. And there are many forms that this could take, and we need to pray those through. But those are some of the things that we're focusing on. Now, of course, it doesn't take the place of discipleship, of growing our community at SCF, so we continue to make Jesus as Lord of our lives. All of that. It goes hand in hand with seeking to reach out more and be present in our community. Just this week in our home group, Chris Hadfield led us in a song. We show a YouTube clip over Zoom and we all mute as we worship together. And he led us in this song that was just so encouraging at this time. I'm not going to sing it, but here are some of the lyrics in closing. It's called Hope and Glory. Hear our cry, O King of heaven, Jesus, hope to every heart. We are lost without your glory. We are lost without you, God. Be the fire that burns within us, flames of love that purify. Send your power and your salvation. Let us see your kingdom come. Only you can move the mountain. Only you can heal our land. Christ alone, our hope and glory. Christ alone, in you we stand.